Welcome to Broncos for Breakfast.
Yeah, guys. Well, we are live. So welcome to building breakfast for the Broncos. Smashing it. We're making a nice little brunch here. Bacon and eggs for our listeners across the pond, the beans for breakfast. No, guys, welcome into building the Broncos. And no Carl today. Carl is out there being a saint. Everyone send Carl some and his community some thoughts and prayers. The community next to him was hit by a tornado. So Carl, being the community man that he is, springing to action and helping those in need and providing assistance. So while Broncos are important, obviously he had some other call-ins there, but luckily for us, we have back-to-back episodes today with Scott and myself. Scott, how have you been since I talked to you 10 hours ago?
It's been crazy all day, So I actually, after we got done, I felt the need to talk some Julio Jones on my channel, so I did. This is like my third show today. It's been a busy day, but again, as we've always said, where would you rather be than talking football? So,
right. I mean, gosh, did you call
kids? Now it's 8:00, and kids are self-sufficient now. They're on their iPads. They're fed. They'll go to bed. I'm good.
There you go. That's good. Did you end up calling up Julio on the cell phone during your live stream? Saying,
no, I didn't. But what I did say was I think that he did not know that he was live. I'd bet a lot of money that he didn't know he was live, because I followed Julio Jones since he was a 15-year-old sophomore at Foley High School in South Alabama. And I can't remember a thing he's ever said, ever. He is the most nondescript, non-quotable, I don't want to be in the spotlight wide receiver you will ever see. This didn't just happen. That was an accident.
Yeah, that's accident's probably a kind word, but is what it is. We don't want to talk ill about Shannon Sharpe, and I enjoyed First Take back in the day when it was Stephen A. and Skip. So it is what it is. It's a different format than what we have here. You pick a side, I'll pick a side, and let's just make quality TV, or I guess quality in quotes.
Not for me. I also took a shot at them saying, well, nobody actually watches it on TV, so Julio probably didn't know they were live.
Yeah, probably.
Look at the ratings.
Hopefully we can reach their rating someday, though. I mean, that's a national audience. So, but guys, building the Broncos tonight. You're joining us tonight. It's again, Carl's not here, but so it's going to be Scott and I back to back on Tuesday. Going back for second helpings of Broncos for Breakfast. You can follow both of us on Twitter. You can follow me at Nick Kendell MHH. You can also follow Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. You can follow the Building the Broncos Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. Also, guys, shout out to the producer behind the scenes, Buana Beast, at John K MHH. Make sure to follow him at him. Shout out to John. Follow our main mothership account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. Also, guys, make sure you go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. If you're joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe, like, and share. If you're joining us on Facebook, hit those thumbs up, heart react, whatever you're doing there. That is a heck of a lot of help. Also, guys, if you're joining us I'm trying to find your page. It's a different thing here. Well, make sure you follow Scott's page at Scott Kennedy. If Juana can pull that up.
I'll drop the link later. It's what someone said. I'm super confused. I agree with it in the chat in here. Is it morning? I'm in the heart of Waffle House country in the deep South. It's always breakfast time. Always. I can go get breakfast and scattered, smothered, and covered 24 hours a day. So welcome to Broncos for Breakfast at night.
Yeah, we're signing Nick and Scott in the evening. We are creatures of morning. I like fishing. And also I'm the type where we're going to reach the trailhead for hiking by 6 a.m., which means waking up at 3 a.m. And a lot of times that weeds out the people who aren't serious about it, which is A-okay with me. If you're down to do 10 miles and 3,000 feet of elevation gain, we'll meet you at the trailhead at 6 a.m. But that's fine. It's not for everybody. Came early, says Victor Rios. Thank you, Victor, for joining us. Broncos for dessert said maybe Denver dessert would be a little. We got to lean into the alliteration there, Jedi. But here we go. Swink talking about your comment earlier. No, Scott has journalistic integrity. Sharp, my favorite Bronco, and Stink, my favorite O-lineman, have not had integrity recently. Ooh, Swink, man, not pulling any punches there.
Well, the thing to remember about Shannon Sharpe and Skip Bayless is they're not journalists. They're media personalities. So take that for what it is. They're not journalists. So having journalistic integrity doesn't necessarily qualify for those guys because they're media personalities, plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, I dropped the Scott's his YouTube link here on all these sites. Make sure you guys go and click that link if you're joining us on Periscope, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, etc., etc. Click that and check out Scott's stuff. I actually guest appearance on his show last Wednesday and had a lot of fun talking about some of the greatest Broncos of all time. So let's first, before we even get into our topic here, let's pull up Muhammad's super sticker if we can. I know that he has one here. I don't think John has it ready. So actually, let's get into the topic here first. Oh, boom, there it is with the pair that Mohammed so loves. Hey you to Mohammed, and obviously if you are giving us the super chat, we got to give a shout out also, not just to Mohammed, but to his newborn baby boy Malik. Shout out to you as well. And we got John coming in saying good evening. We got Michael coming in here. Good evening, Nick and Scott. How are you guys doing? Hashtag Denver Broncos for life. Hashtag State of Being from Arizona. Robert Caslow's in the house. What's up, Broncos Maniacs? And let's get into it. Drew Lock, obviously the quarterback's always going to be the topic of conversation, especially when they are working with one of the all-time greats in Peyton Manning and Ryan O'Halloran. O'Halloran. I don't want to mispronounce his name, but I probably did. Ryan O'Halloran over at the Denver Post, Broncos beat writer for the Denver Post, had an article that came out today recapping Peyton Manning and Drew Lock's time together working this offseason. And to make a long story short, not super long, but to make it short of it, Peyton Manning or Drew Lock went over to Peyton Manning's house 2 different days, I believe, and they worked together about 9 days going over film and just kind of picking brain. It was kind of a seminar course, if you will, covering quarterbacking in the NFL and going over a lot of what Peyton's film was, and Drew Lock just kind of picking apart, like, what did you see here? Why did you do what you did here? What did you see on the covered pre-snap that made you do this, et cetera, et cetera? It's definitely a good thing. Obviously, a lot of people will say, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter that much, right? But 9 hours, but it definitely doesn't hurt.
There it is. It doesn't hurt.
No.
It can only help. So, that was the point I was going to make is it certainly doesn't hurt to listen to that. That sometimes there can be too much information, and it all, it kind of goes against the keep it simple, stupid philosophy that I'm a firm believer on. But Peyton's not going to overwhelm somebody with it in a day session, so it's certainly not going to hurt. And that was key as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And howdy to Dave Glassman. Howdy from ICT. We got Michael Paul coming in here. Time to get lock and loaded. Dion saying maybe he put in the work. Speaking of lock, and BX Bronco Jedi saying I miss breakfast live, but Chipotle mayo goes great with fries. Ooh, that does sound good. How about a good garlic aioli?
That's like the zesty ranch squeeze dressing that I was talking about. That's it.
Yes,
that's exactly it. I put that on pizza. It's great. Really good. And Shane Daniels has a good question on here too. He dropped a super, and we appreciate that. What do you think is the one thing the Broncos need to do to make that big leap forward to become a playoff team? I got an easy answer. I want you to go first, though. I got an easy answer. Let's see if we have the same one.
Excluding the quarterback position. So obviously that's a big one because that goes not only scoring more points, but protecting the football. Both probably go the most with quarterback position. But something we talked about a couple of episodes ago, not on this, but Broncos for Breakfast, which every Tuesday and Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, Broncos need to take the ball away better. They last year were okay taking the football away, and part of that is the Broncos aren't playing with the lead very often, and teams don't really respect that offense, so they're not being aggressive to the point of reckless with the ball. They feel like they can be a little bit more conservative, which means that the Broncos aren't going to be creating as many turnovers, but still, this is a team that is predicated on defense. They've been doing a great job over the last few years keeping defenses out of the end zone. They give up a few yards, but yards don't equal points, guys. It's 2021. Like let's change our perspective of what defense means. But turnovers, they haven't taken the ball away enough, and they just need to do better in that department.
Well, and I'm gonna my easy answer for Shane's question, and Shane again, thank you, was get and stay healthy. There you go. If you've got the people, if you've got your best players available and on the field, this is going to be a good team. Aside from the quarterback position, the quarterback position is the big obvious one for everybody. So for me, the next one is get and stay healthy. If the Broncos can do that, they're going to take a big leap forward. Injuries were brutal to this team last year, all the way from Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, to your number one wide receiver. And all of that has a trickle-down effect. I like to mix my sports analogies here. If you lose a closer, and you may have just lost one guy, but then everybody else moves up in the rotation into a role that they're not necessarily used to. And it makes, you didn't just hurt one position, you ended up hurting 5 positions in your bullpen. So that's how the losing a number 1 receiver does. You lose a number 1, now everybody's elevated. Now you're weaker in 3 other positions. Your wide receiver 1 is weaker, your wide receiver 2 is weaker, and your wide receiver 3 is weaker. So, Cortland coming back strong, Von Miller coming back strong, Bradley Chubb cleaning up that ankle. All of a sudden, you're cooking with gas.
Yep. No, absolutely. So that's a good one as well. The injuries were a big deal last year. The Broncos, I think, had the second most money end up on injured reserve in the NFL, only behind the 49ers. I know that Football Outsiders didn't pity the Broncos as much when it came to injuries. I think they had the 9th biggest impact as far as injuries last year, according to their formulas. But still, you're on the right of the bell curve there. You hopefully would have some regression to the mean. So getting healthy there will be big. But I come back to the turnovers, and the turnovers also are a big part of staying healthy as well, right? You're down to your 7th, 8th in cornerback last year. Mm-hmm. You're down to no Von Miller. I mean, you need those guys to take the ball away. So.
Yeah, so I cheated. I cheated and just talked. Okay. Let's get healthy, because then everything else that we're talking about from schemes, tactics, production, all that should get better. It should be. So for me, that's the easy answer: is let's get and stay healthy.
Yep, and it looks like we got some some stars here from guessing that's what the hand reaction means from John there. I always love teasing John in the background. Also, he's got the coolest hat. I need to get me one of those.
We'll do that. If we have a graphic, we'll make something up for you. Stars.
But Michael coming in with the stars. Michael, we really appreciate it over on Facebook. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Also, he said earlier, good evening, Nick and Scott. How are you guys doing from Arizona? Beautiful Arizona. I'll have to get down there someday. I'm more of a forest and mountains kind of guy when it comes to the wilderness, but there is some beauty in the desert as well.
I'll tell you what, though, so am I. And when you go through New Mexico and Arizona, you'll appreciate the raw landscape. First time I drove through New Mexico and saw the stacked striped rocks going up the canyons, just gorgeous. You get up into the desert and up there, it's just beautiful. So yeah, you got to see it all. This whole country, there's so much to love. So go see it all. Go see it all.
Yeah, I'm all up here in the Pacific Northwest. Need to get to Hawaii. Need to get to Alaska. Need to get out to Montana, too. Glacier, number 1 on the bucket list right now. Kyle Chapman coming in here. New to the channel. How do you guys feel about the Javonte Williams pick? Scott, I'll kick this off to you, because obviously you guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome, first off. Congrats, Kyle. This is going to be a good time. You're my new best friend. But we both talked about Javonte Williams leading up to the draft pertaining to the Broncos and also the Falcons, a team that Scott, Falcons fan, covering the Broncos, so he doesn't have those biases, which you love to see. But we were both talking about needing a power back that can run between the tackles for both of our schemes. And Javonte Williams was the guy that we both liked. So how do you feel about Javonte Williams for the Broncos pick 35?
Well, I know that some of the question was not necessarily around the player, but did the Broncos need to trade up to get him? Or should they have waited a little bit? And one of the stats that Nick pulled out that I absolutely love is he broke the most tackles or had the most yards after contact in college, and that's so important, because scouting these guys, especially from college to the NFL, I said if you take this quote out of context, I'm going to sound like an idiot, but speed is overrated. Yeah, I know. Let me explain. If you've got a 200-pound guy that runs a 4.4 but can't break a tackle, he's useless in the NFL. Yeah. If he can't catch, he's not any good at any running back, because everybody's fast, and you've got to be able to break that first line. You got to be able to clear through the trash, so they call it, through the arm tackles and stuff. And if you can break a tackle, a 4.6 guy that can break a tackle, if he breaks that first line of defense, by the time the back 7 linebackers, safeties turn to go get him, he's got 40 yards. He's gone. I mean, he's got 40 yards.
It's I don't want to say he's Alvin Kamara, but Alvin Kamara is not really a straight line home run hitter. But he has such good balance, and he's rubbery. I think I heard it was like a Football Life story with Terrell Davis, and they described him as having rubber hips because guys just kind of bounced off of him. Not the fastest guy, but he was you couldn't bring him down. And when you had weak contact with him, he was going to maintain his balance and keep going. And you kind of see that with Williams.
Just watch the players slide off of him as they go, because he's able to maintain it. There's 2 things. People love the 40 times because it's measurable. There's 2 things that you cannot measure in a running back. You can just absolutely tell if they've got it or not. It's balance and vision. And balance is the single most important aspect of a running back, because you can't knock a guy off his feet, then he's going to be pretty valuable. So And to me, I think this is a great pick, a huge weapon. Running backs should be contributors right away. The learning curve is very shallow, not steep, so very flat learning curve. Skill players, especially the running backs, those guys are born. They're just born. They either have it. When you hear coaches say all the time, "Oh, that was God given. That was something you just can't coach." You hear that about running backs, and he should be able to make an impact right away.
And on tape, he is limited in the reps as a pass catcher, but he does appear to have soft hands. Now, you don't have the reps, you don't have the volume, so like, could there be an issue that crops up in the NFL? Yes, but one thing I'm not worried about with Javonte Williams that you could not say about, I guess, Philip Lindsay, not take a shot, but just that was an issue for Philip Lindsay last year. Pass blocking. Javonte Williams, if a linebacker gets one-on-one with him, Javonte Williams will stone that guy in his tracks. So that's really exciting. Also, I said it multiple times leading up to the draft. I had 3 tier 1 running backs in this class in Travis Etienne and Najee Harris and Javonte Williams. And which one do you want, Nick? Whichever one's the last one on the board. So that was Javonte Williams. I'm happy about that. I don't love trading up to go get a running back, giving up those assets. That fourth, everybody's like, oh man, the Broncos really need a tackle. They could have taken a tackle with that pick that they gave up. I believe it was pick 104. I don't love that, but they had it on really good authority that Javonte Williams was going to go pick 36 to the Miami Dolphins if they didn't go up to 35. So he was their guy. He went up and got them. Now you have a cost-controlled running back playing the best years of their life, that rookie contract for the next 4 seasons. You use them up,
worth a second rounder.
Let them walk.
It is. It's worth a second rounder for sure. And Nick, let's highlight In the Shop with Willie real quick. About 5 comments up, because a lot of people are new who haven't seen us on Broncos for Breakfast. Who's this guy? Who the hell is Scott Kennedy? I grew up in Atlanta. But I was, so a little bit about me. I was director of scouting through college football recruiting, did some stuff with the NFL Network. Everybody's a fan of someone. That's how we get into the game. But I was always more of a fan of the process, of the discovery, of the development, of the hindsight. Who is smart? I watched the 1989 draft probably 25 times. I was 16 years old. I was one of those crazy people. So when we talk about fans, the line I'll use all the time is I'm a fan of me. That's who I'm a fan of. I'm the biggest fan of me. So if I say Javonte Williams is going to be a good player and I like the pick, by God, I want Javonte Williams to be successful. I'm more interested in me being right than being a fan of a team, except for, maybe this one. And we're not going to talk professionally with Chelsea. I've poured my fandom into international football because this is a job. This became a job. And this has been my job for the better part of 20 years. More than that, actually. I think my first recruiting class was 1998. So 25 years that I've been doing this. And the phrase that you use is the longer you do this, the more you root for the names on the back of the jersey than on the front. And again, the name on the back of my jersey says Kennedy. I'm a fan of me. So I want to be right when I give you my opinions. So don't worry too much about being a fan of a different team, especially one that grew up in Atlanta, because we're cynical SOBs. Our teams always break our hearts and let us down. You're not going to run into too many trash talking Atlanta fans, at least not over 40.
Yeah, I also have a jersey for Scott Kennedy. No, I was making him spit out of the drink. But hello from Young Hog. I saw Charlie Beagles in the house also. I think there are plenty of people who cover. Are you looking for somebody to be a rah-rah fan? Are you looking for that kind of perspective? Which that's out there, right? Like that's out there, no doubt. But that was never it for me. I've always, and I am a fan of the Broncos. That was my team growing up. First football game I remember is the 1998 Super Bowl. Not to show my age or anything, but and I watched like the VHS tapes of the 98 season and 99 season over and over again, just over and over again as a kid. But covering this team since the, I guess, 2016 season, the fan hat, I still have it sometimes, but I really try to put that away. And I put on 2 fan hats when it comes to the Iowa Hawkeyes. So that's my squad. I can be fully crazy about them and biased as I want to be because whatever, except when draft prospects, I try to be pretty tough with that. But
and the final comment from In the Shop, Willie, probably not the final comment, but he says, and real full of yourself too. I didn't say I was good. I just said I rooted for myself.
Yeah.
I didn't say I was any good at it. That's up for y'all to decide. I'm not going to tell you I'm good. I want you guys to tell me I'm good.
Time will tell. Okay, we got a super sticker here coming in from Stew Meat with the, I believe it's a fox, maybe it's a red panda there, showing the love, and we're feeling the love, Stu. Thank you very much, and a cute picture of you and your kid in the back. It's a little small, but it looks like rocking a rainbow shirt, and you looks like you're rocking a Bronco hat there as well. So, Stu, thank you very much. We appreciate it. The red panda, red fox love, and back at you. So let's get into this a little bit more as far as Drew Lock and Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it a little bit, but I did think it was interesting where Peyton Manning had a comment also about how he has been there and available for all the Broncos quarterbacks so far since he's left. So that would be, Trevor Siemian, Case Keenum, Paxton Lynch, Joe Flacco, et cetera, et cetera. And while that's great, don't get me wrong, I think there needs to be a little bit of a break pumping and just some realism when it comes to 2 sessions for 4.5 hours each working with Peyton Manning. It's not like Drew Lock is in Peyton Manning boot camp where Peyton Manning wakes up, with a megaphone in his ear at 6 a.m. like time to get up. Yeah, and he talks about how much like Drew Lock is living and breathing football right now, but there is some innate ability where some guy, like you said earlier, born not made. I think that is true for quarterbacks as well. Now they have to be crazy people. We talked a little bit this morning about Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, just that persona where you have to be like a psychopath to achieve that level of greatness, like that obsessed with your craft. And not saying that Drew Lock doesn't.
You're going to make enemies. You're not always going to be the most popular guy in the locker room. You're going to run some people off. They're going to be pissed off because they couldn't keep up, and they blame you for that instead of themselves. So you'll get a lot of bad talk about from players that end up are that driven. Will run a lot of players off, and so be it.
Yep. And I'll get to this real quick from Dion Roman saying, "What's up, Nick? This is my favorite chat." Well, Dion, thank you very much, and also want to give a shout out to everybody in here right now. Apparently, the chat has been a little bit at each other's throats recently. That's kind of happens in the off season, but so far everybody seems to be in a pretty good spot. So let's keep the good vibes rolling. I just want to give you guys a shout out for just having some levity in the chat. I appreciate that, but thank you very much for the comment here. How is Javonte doing so far? Big fan of his running style. It's kind of reminds me of, right now it's just 7-on-7s, and it kind of reminds me of trying to judge a running back at the Senior Bowl. Like their running practices, it's really, really hard to get a pulse on a guy in this type of setting right now at the running back position.
The 2 positions that are the hardest to judge in a non-contact setting are running back and linebacker, because if you're not hit or being hit, then you don't know what you've got. You get a little better idea when you're watching quarterbacks and wide receivers and defensive backs, just because that translate the best to when the pads come on or off, because they're not necessarily as physical. But it's harder. What you can get a good idea of is their fluidity in the passing game.
Yes.
How well do they catch the ball and that type of stuff. So we won't know nearly as much about them until the pads come on. And frankly, not quite as bad as kickers, but you won't know much about a running back until you're going full speed. So you better have already done your homework. But we'll get a good idea of what we think should happen with Javonte Williams once they start playing real games, and not even just preseason games, but real games.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll know once maybe in 11-on-11s as well, but they're not going to be going full speed. So is what it is. And we got TD King coming in here saying, "Yo, I'm a Hawkeye fan and a Broncos fan as well." Well, TD King, if you are also a St. Louis Cardinals fan, then hit me up, man. We're bros. We're good friends. Also, I will say I'm not the biggest soccer fan, but I will sit down and watch a Chelsea football club game every once in a while. Also, the Germany international football team with Men's USA.
The biggest football game of the year is Saturday at 3:00 Eastern time. In case you were wondering, Manchester City and Chelsea Champions League final.
Oh, man.
Yeah, whatever.
I might be hiking. I guess that kind of shows like what big of a fan I am. Like if the Broncos were in a Super Bowl, the Hawkeyes were in the national championship, my sister could be getting married. I'm just kidding. I would be going to my sister's wedding, but I'd have my phone like somewhere, like a tattooed on some like groomsman's back or something. But we'll see. It's supposed to be beautiful here, so we'll see. But continuing on this Drew Lock stuff, I'm just curious your thoughts here about how much does this actually matter? And Peyton Manning's comments specifically about the Broncos quarterback struggles and the fact that he has worked with all these other quarterbacks. And so far the results have been, points at the chaos that has been the Broncos quarterback position over the recent years.
Well, and the other thing that I liked what he was saying was in reading Chad's article, the continuity becomes a buzzword. It almost becomes a punchline.
Yeah.
But he said he had the same offensive coordinator for 13 years. And part of that is it the chicken and the egg? Did you have the same coordinator because you had a great quarterback,
Yep.
or did he help become a great quarterback because, and there's part of that too. But, is Drew Lock going to take that big step right away? He can. It's, I wouldn't say the odds are geared towards him becoming a top 10 quarterback, but if you can even get him up into the 20s, you're making progress. You're better. If he doesn't have to be even an upper tier. And as we've talked about a lot, there's a lot of talk in the chat about Locke and Rodgers, but Bridgewater is right there too. So Teddy Bridgewater is going to make the phrase you use a lot that I like is the floor just got higher. The worst that you're going to get just got better than it was last year. So the quarterback play with the Denver Broncos is going to improve one way or another. Whoever it's going to be, it's going to get better this year, and that's going to have a huge trickle-down effect with the receivers, with the offense, time of possession, putting your defense in better positions. So it's huge. It's absolutely imperative that the Broncos get better quarterback play, and they will. They will this year. It's almost guaranteed.
Yeah, barring something catastrophic happening, the offense will be better this year. The quarterback play will be better. Now, to what extent? I mean, you're going from a bottom 3 to 5 quarterback play last season to what? Right? Like, that's the question. And then it becomes, you're already looking down the barrel of what happens for Drew Lock after this rookie contract's over, because at the end of this point next year, or a year from now, we're going to be sitting there with just 1 year left of control on that contract. And then what do you do? Because it's not, you can piddle around and, kind of meander through the quarterback purgatory with rookie quarterback contracts, and that's not going to sink you. It's when you pay big guaranteed contracts to guys who are not it that really just, that throws you off completely, because then not only are you with the wrong quarterback, but you're losing talented guys around that quarterback as well.
Well, and the phrase that coaches have used for years, it's not the guys you miss that hurt you, it's the guys you get that can't play. Mm-hmm. So, if again, going back to your point, if you've sunk a lot of money in, and this is a make or break year, really for Drew Lock, because there was a big contingent that was hoping that the Denver may have taken someone like Justin Fields. He was there. Yeah. He was available to take. And I love Patrick Surtain. The first time I was on the show was a nighttime like this when we were talking about draft. And Scott, who do you think the Broncos should take? And I said, based on what I know about this defense, I'd probably take Patrick Surtain. But that depends on how bad do you think you need a quarterback, because Justin Fields was there. And this draft ultimately is going to be several drafts, not just the Denver Broncos, but several drafts are going to be graded based on how Justin Fields does with the Bears, because there were a lot of teams that needed quarterbacks that passed on him, and that's how they're going to be graded. If Justin Fields ends up being an all-pro, there's going to be some guys that look back and say we should have taken that guy.
Yeah, and I want to get to this comment from Mike Postel over on Facebook. Guys, if you're joining on Facebook, please hit the like button or the heart button. But I think this maybe comes back to a comment you said earlier about this quarterback room in general. I'm excited to see an average veteran, referencing Teddy Bridgewater, who's shown his ceiling over a quarterback who hasn't hit his yet. So what do you have to say to Mike here, who is a pretty outspoken Lock supporter, which, you do you, Mike. We appreciate that. Don't stifle your opinion. We love it. But I'm curious what you have to say about Teddy Bridgewater showing his ceiling versus Drew Lock and the unknown.
I would say Teddy was on the ascendancy when he got his leg just about snapped in half. I don't think he's ever going to his ceiling. I don't think he's ever going to hit it again, frankly. The injury is going to prevent that. But can he be a game manager? Yeah. He can be a guy that limits the mistakes, put you in good situations. And what Teddy Bridgewater does is he's a leader of men. He's an absolute leader. He's not always aesthetically pleasing. He might look awkward in some of the things he does, but players rally around him. If you've seen even his first public interview, when he said, I'm here to help. It's a quarterback competition. I've enjoyed being here with Drew Lock. We get along great. I'm here to make this team better. I'm here to make players better and hopefully maybe even make them better men. He said something similar to that, but better men. You've got to have some arrogance to say something like that, and he can say it without arrogance because it's genuine. That's who Teddy Bridgewater is. And it's like, oh, great. Maybe you should be the team chaplain or something. But no, this is a guy who was a terrific quarterback in Minnesota, won a bunch of games in mop-up role with New Orleans with 5-0. He got a big contract again. You're lucky that someone else is paying it, that he can do a job. If everybody else is who they should be for the Denver Broncos, Teddy Bridgewater can absolutely do a job. So if he's playing his best, you look at we went through, Nick, on Broncos for Breakfast, we went through what we thought the record could be. What did I have? 12 and maybe 11-6, I think I came up with, or 12-5 overall.
I think you had him at 11-6 or 10-7.
I think we both did. Was an 11-6 season?
I think I had him at 9-8.
Okay. Yeah, so you're a hater.
I try to temper expectations because I feel like every year you do this and then it's always like, oh, they didn't perform up to expectations because XYZ. So always it's like when you're trying to predict your March Madness bracket, you have to pick a 14 seed upsetting a 3 seed, right? Like there just has to be one in there. Otherwise you're not doing it right.
The 5-12 is always popular.
Yes, exactly. But that's a big one as well. So there was a chat I wanted to get in here from Manny Weiss coming in here saying, Rodgers and the Packers have not won the NFC game, or not represented the NFC in the Super Bowl since they last won the Super Bowl. Do you have any thoughts on this comment? Because obviously it's hard to get to the Super Bowl despite what Tom Brady and Peyton Manning showed for years in the AFC. But I think this is something where you're talking about it. This might be one of the very reasons why Rodgers is very upset about his situation in Green Bay. It's not because Rodgers hasn't been a good quarterback, and it's not that the Packers have done a terrible job surrounding with talent, but it also doesn't seem like they understand what they have or appreciate what they have and like are going in on having this quarterback, right? Like it's like when the Broncos, like what we just saw with Tom, he has to be chafed about seeing what Tom Brady just did in Tampa Bay, right? Like just like they go out there and they go all in on Tom Brady. Why can't they do that with me? I
know the rest of us are chafed at what he just did in Tampa Bay in year one. Unless you're a Tampa fan. I thought that was a great achievement. I mean, Tampa, it's not exactly a glamour-based franchise. But my thought on that is it's easy. It's a team game. Aaron Rodgers was absolutely spectacular last year. I go back to Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. And, what? Does that mean he wasn't a good quarterback? No, he was a terrific quarterback. Aaron Rodgers was MVP. Was it 48 touchdowns against 7 interceptions?
Yep.
Playing it at the highest level possible. It's a team game. How many quarterbacks would you take over him in the NFL if you could take your pick of quarterbacks right now to play for the Denver Broncos? How long would it take you to get to the name Aaron Rodgers?
Are you talking about one game, one season, or
just 1 year, just one season? He might be my first pick for next year.
He'd probably be my number 2 behind Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, but there's an argument to be made either way. I could live with that either way.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, if you can get Rodgers, I think you got to at least look into it. I know some people in the chat maybe are saying they shouldn't do that, but is what it is. And BNS coming in here with the interesting crow picture there. A lot of crows out here in Seattle. Crazy. But the best TB is not even as good as a middling lock. Are you saying the best Tom Brady is not even as good as
Bridgewater?
Oh, okay. We were just talking about Tom Brady. So
Teddy Bridgewater.
I mean, the big thing about Teddy Bridgewater versus Locke is that I think Locke can do things, make plays that are wow. But the way this roster is set up right now, you don't need somebody who is the main driver to score points because this offense isn't lacking in talent. You need somebody who can protect the football and accentuate the weapons that they have, right? Like you don't have to have, it's not this John Elway, having to go out there and play hero ball when Jerry Jeudy is getting separation. And if he's the second read and you hit that on time and give him a catchable ball, you can move the offense and do things. So go ahead.
I think if I was taking the flip side of that, I could make an argument for what he has to say, for what BNS is saying. It's like, oh, they're 11-5. Again, going back to this is a team game. He made a Pro Bowl with 14 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He was the Pro Bowler because he helped lead his team to 11-5 record. Well, obviously, it was more than just Teddy Bridgewater there, and that was his second year as a 23-year-old kid before he got hurt. We can go back and look at some of the other quarterbacks and what they did at 23 years old. We did that last week when we were talking about Josh Allen as our breakout player, and let's make the case for Drew Lock. If you look at the first 18 games of Josh Allen, they look a lot like Drew Lock's. So will Drew make that step? Would Teddy have made that next step as a 24, 25, 26-year-old player? They're not all Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. Those guys they're special. They are. But do you need special on this team to win and win big.
I mean, to get to the playoffs and save people's jobs, you don't. To get over the hump that is, God, let's just call it 3 top 12 quarterbacks in the entire NFL in the division, in Derek Carr and Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes, maybe top 14, top half quarterbacks, all in one division. You do need better than middling, I would say, unless you get lucky on the injury front. The ball bounces your way a few times in those games, which can happen, but you do need better than average. But average and protecting the football and running the offense might be enough to save some guys' jobs in this coaching staff. And I know a lot of people are thinking long-term here because you say you know what Teddy Bridgewater is and you have this idealized of what Drew Lock can be. Doesn't always work out that way. But you got guys that were fighting for their job this year, and they're going to go with somebody that gives them the best chance to win this year.
Yeah, and it's not going to be about potential. It's not. This is a team that wants to win now. And what it says to me is if Teddy Bridgewater is a quarterback, it's a stopgap. It means that Drew Lock isn't going to be the answer, and they're going to have to go get another quarterback. That's what you can read into that. And as we said this morning, whoever is in on day one, the quarterback battle isn't going to stop because as soon as either one of those guys struggles, there's going to be calls for the other one. So there's going to be pressure on these two quarterbacks. There's pressure on every NFL quarterback, but there's going to be pressure on these guys with someone looking over their shoulder and fans looking over their shoulder pretty much all year long, assuming they both stay healthy.
Yep. And we got Flyfish Hunter coming in here saying, I remember the Kyle Orton days. I'm afraid Teddy is similar to that. Yikes. Well, Kyle Orton was okay quarterback, bottom guy. He's kind of like he's just classic journeyman quarterback who's going to bounce around the league for a while. Good enough to get paid, but not good enough to land somewhere as a starter. That could be what Teddy Bridgewater is. I will say that Teddy, coming off the injury, is a little bit more mobile than what Orton was. Orton was one of the most statuesque quarterbacks in his time, and that's even different than what the league has transitioned to today, where the legs and running ability of the quarterback is even more important than it used to be. But I guess not dating all the way back to like the Otto Graham days, but 80s football onwards, the mobility of a quarterback is more important. But it's possible, right? Like, let's not lie. Like, Teddy Bridgewater, you got him with the Panthers eating a good chunk of money and only cost you a 6th-round pick. So, and part of that is because of the contract. Part of that is them doing right by Teddy because Teddy's known as one of the best guys in the league, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But still, like, Teddy Bridgewater, if he becomes the guy, if Teddy Bridgewater becomes the franchise quarterback with his team, that would be an anomaly. Just like at this point, given the data we've seen from Drew Lock, if Drew Lock becomes a franchise quarterback, a top 10 quarterback in this league, that would also be an anomaly. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Anomalies happen all the time, but you wouldn't bet on them, right? I'm not really that much of a betting man, but I don't know if I would bet on either of them becoming, decade-long top 10 quarterbacks from this point forward.
Yeah, like you're saying, with either one of them, is either one of these, I think that's more the question, is either one of these guys the starter in 2 years? Teddy's not going to be. Teddy Bridgewater won't be the starter in 2 years. He's here as an insurance policy. It's more up to Drew Lock to take that step forward. And if he can't, then there's going to have to be somebody new coming in.
Yeah,
but they're going to get a chance. The question was one of the questions we had this morning was, how much time do you give Drew Lock? None. The answer was none. The time's going to have to be earned. So because again, the people that are there are out for their jobs, and they're definitely in a win now mentality. There's no building for the future right now. It's time to win.
Yeah, nope, absolutely. That's a good point. Somebody had a comment earlier about what's more important for a defense's success, sacks or turnovers. I've been looking for it for a bit. I cannot find it. This is kind of a thing where you have some confounding in there, right? Like if you have a team that's able to get a lot of sacks, that's probably going to lead to more interceptions and turnovers, and strip sacks as well. But the turnovers are probably, outside of points given up, turnovers are probably the second most important stat you can find.
Yeah, but one leads to the other. If you're getting sacks, you're pressuring the quarterback and forcing turnovers.
Yep.
And a sack fumble. So, I would say the most important thing is pressure on the quarterback because it's going to lead to both. If the quarterback has time to throw, you're not going to get turnovers. Plain and simple. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Not to be too much of a nerd here, but a little epidemiology lesson for you guys. Confounding is the word of choice here. study done. A bunch of people drinking coffee in France, a bunch of people drinking coffee, and a lot of them get cancer. It's like, oh man, what's going on here? Is coffee leading to cancer? Well, guess what they're also doing besides drinking coffee out on those little cafes? They're also smoking cigarettes, right? Like the coffee is the confounding variable here. So there you go. And we got Phoenix coming in here. But you can train Locke to be the point guard as you can't train BW to be wow. And I think he means Teddy Bridgewater to be wow. And in theory, that's true. But when the bullets are flying, that's that some guys will revert back to their who their true identity is. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I also worry about Drew Lock becoming too conservative. Like I know in OTAs day one, there were a couple of reps where like Drew Lock got to the check down, but the check down had two guys around him. Like, don't go to the check down if the check down's covered, right? Like you got to go to the right read. It doesn't just have to be conservative.
Theoretically, if there's two guys on the check down, you probably should have made the first throw.
Yes. Or you should have read the coverage and understood where the primary read should be based on the pre-snap reads. But this is stuff that Locke has had issues with that he's going to have to improve on. I mean, it is what it is. But I agree with you in theory, Phoenix, that it's easier to tell a guy to dial it back rather than to tell a guy to dial it up.
There's an old saying down here in the South. It's a whole lot easier to put a bit in their mouth than a boot in their butt. It's easier to bring somebody back than it is to get them going. So just exactly what you just said. I agree 100%.
And we got Charlie coming in here. Charlie Beagle, one of my favorites. He near and dear to my heart when he talked about Casey's Pizza out in Iowa. That was many streams ago. So shout out to Charlie. He has 1 year deal. So talking about Teddy Bridgewater. Locke still has 2 years on his rookie contract. If you sit Locke and start Teddy, what have you accomplished? Well, hopefully they've accomplished winning some games and the coaching staff is living to see another day. Right. Like I think that's what the perspective is. And I don't think Peyton is going to overstep the coaching staff's decision. So that's where I'm leaning. In the shop with Willie, I'm going to put you in timeout, man. You're hurting my feelings now. Casey's Pizza is disgusting. Breakfast pizza at Casey's is awesome. And Casey's is a national treasure in the state of Iowa. So don't be hurting. Now you're just hurting my feelings.
But what have you accomplished? And that's the key. You're playing Teddy to win now. If Teddy's playing, it's because you don't think that Drew Lock is going to help you win now. It's not a move for the future. It's a move for now. If Teddy ends up being the starter, Drew Lock's days are going to be numbered. The Broncos will be looking, and they might be kicking themselves for not taking Justin Fields.
Yep, absolutely. Then that would open up the 2022 quarterback debate, which guys will have another thing here. But it won't be like, I think if Drew Lock doesn't win this starting position, the calls for many people saying Drew Lock deserves a chance will have subsided after, if he didn't earn it and you don't see him this year, or he does get a chance later, then that's an issue. But I don't know at this point, how far have you done any 2022 quarterback stuff?
I haven't. Not yet.
Okay.
I want to see them, on the field again, fans in the stands. This past season was a little bit of a wash for me with the college football year and the stop-start nature of it. And we're going to play. No, we're not going to play. It was nice. The most guys that I watched were at the Senior Bowl, and there were a lot of them that ended up, drafted all over the place.
Yeah, and people are talking about Casey's Pizza. It's not that great. It's just it's near and dear to my heart because it's nostalgia. It's gas station pizza. So, but still, like when you're in the middle of Iowa and that's the only thing around for a while, that's a good time. But let me see. So I had a place that I wanted to go with this. Some other options. So 2022 quarterbacks. I gotta say, I know that he gets a fair amount of hype. I don't see it with Sam Howell. I think like Sam Howell reminds me of like junior year Baker Mayfield, where it's like, it's okay, but like the decision making is not great. It's a make-believe offense. It's that one that also like, how am I evaluating DK Metcalf and AJ Brown in this make-believe college offense that's not replicatable at all with these like, I don't know, terrible. Like the same offensive coordinator with Ole Miss that year is now the offensive coordinator at North Carolina. Dumb. I don't know what's going on here. But not a big Sam Howell fan. I love Spencer Rattler's arm, but apparently he is a horse's rear end. And he's not very mature, so he's going to have to grow up there. After that, I mean, Malik Willis is a guy who's a lot of fun, but his accuracy is pretty hit or miss right now. But man, the arm is live, and he is twitched out both wazoos.
Yeah, and that strikes me as strange that he would be considered that high right now. I remember him coming out because he went to Roswell High School, which is 15 minutes from my house, and I went to see him play. And at the time, I believe he was committed to Virginia Tech, and they were they were. I said, this is a really good quarterback. And they're like, oh, they don't want him as a quarterback. I'm like, well, then they're going to lose him because someone's going to tell him he can play quarterback.
Yeah.
They wanted him as a defensive back. And I was looking at him as a spread option type for the college game. That he has progressed that well to where he's considered a first-round quarterback at the NFL level. It's extremely impressive to me because that means he has developed quite a lot. So proud of him. Good job, Malik.
Yeah, and I can't, name is escaping me off the top of my head right now, but the quarterback Quincy Avery, who's done a lot of work with Deshaun Watson on the field and worked with Justin Fields and Trey Lance in the past, said that right now he thinks that Malik Willis has a great chance to be the number 1 overall quarterback picked. So worth watching. But then also you have Jordan Palmer, who's worked with this quarterback, but he said Bo Nix, and you're an Auburn alumni. Bo Nix, first overall pick. What's going on here?
Willis went to Auburn. Like I said, that was the guy that should have been the guy. He fit the Gus Malzahn offense to a T. I think they were concerned about his accuracy and stuff. And Bo Nix, we've talked a lot about Seth Williams, and why hasn't he's got all the tools. How do you end up being a 6th rounder when he's really got 1st, 2nd round type of ability? Part of the problem was playing in a Gus Malzahn offense. Part of the problem was trying to break in a freshman quarterback and Bo Nix, freshman sophomore quarterback. So Bo Nix has struggled. If you were to say that to Auburn or SEC fans that this is a guy that should be a top 5 quarterback, I don't think you're going to get a lot of agreement.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of projection right now. I see some people also talking some Desmond Ridder. Another one that is worth shouting out is Carson Strong down at Nevada. So we'll see. Somebody said it was a quantity over quality class right now. We're going to have the 2022 class to kind of sort this out. Hopefully some guys will rise to the top. But right now, I am much more interested in 2023 with DJ Ungalele and Bryce Young. DJU. Oh my God, so much fun. He's like the prospect of like Jamarcus Russell as actually like the physical talent, not the mental laziness, but like the arm talent and the size is unbelievable.
It's funny you say that because when I think of the most physically gifted quarterback I ever saw, Jamarcus Russell comes to mind right away. I've always kind of said that, especially back then, this is almost 20 years ago when Jamarcus Russell was coming out, was that if you considered scouting treasure hunting, if you went and you come through the woods and you see Jamarcus Russell throw a football, you go, that's it. I've found it. I'm done. That's it. That's what I've been looking for. But he didn't have the desire. He was that good that he was able to dominate his competition and ended up a number 1 overall draft pick without really having to put in any work. And that doesn't work in the NFL at all.
Nope.
There's everybody there has talent. Everybody's got elite type of talent that has made it to the NFL, and that didn't work anymore. So there you go.
Arm talent and frame.
Russell, he was something special physically.
That's the physical profile I see with DJ Ungalele over at Clemson. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. So check out for him. That game against Notre Dame this year where Trevor Lawrence was out with he was sick. They lost, but man, it was so much fun, so much talent for a true freshman out there just slinging the rock. So I think Cortland Sutton also had an interview today, hyping up his guy Drew, hyping up his guy Jerry Jeudy, and I'm curious your thoughts here. How does Cortland Sutton coming back affect Jerry Jeudy, and how does Cortland Sutton playing with Jerry Jeudy work?
Well, his interview was so great. You can just tell you never want to say that it's a blessing in disguise when someone suffers an injury like that. But what it does is it teaches them how much they really want it. And you could tell that Cortland Sutton is just dying to get back on the field and how hard he works. So they even had to back him off a little bit because you can overstress other things. You can slow down your recovery by ending up working too hard. And is it possible for him to come back stronger? Yeah, because he can come back stronger and faster than he was because he's worked harder than he ever has in his life. But as we've talked about, one of my biases is I like bigger receivers. And a receiver that's going to depend on his size, 6'3", 215, 220-pound guy, is going to not be as affected by an ACL as a slot guy, as a quick twitch type cornerback speed receiver. So I think he's got a chance to come in and pick up at least close to where he was. And if you can get 90% of Cortland Sutton, that's going to help Jerry Jeudy. And if you just remove the intangibles, just taking some of the pressure off of him, just not just in coverage, but in day-to-day life. You know, he didn't have to be a number one type of guy. Our number one's here. Now you can just relax and fit into the offense. You got big Cortland's going to take some of the pressure off you. Now Jerry Jeudy can ease back into the role that he was meant to play. Like I said, the trickle-down effect, when you lose your number one, everybody else gets elevated a spot. Mm-hmm. They might not be ready for it. So putting everybody where you think they belong and let them play up or down to that level, it's going to be great for both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And last year we saw Jerry Jeudy have a crazy amount of uncatchable targets where they were just peppering him the football. Maybe that was Drew Lock just throwing it to his first read. Maybe it was just Lock not knowing where to go. So just getting the ball to Jeudy, that's, not a terrible plan, but Judy's more of a finesse receiver than a power player, where you see with Cortland Sutton, where if the ball is not on time or on target, he's still got a chance to do that. You don't really see that with Jeudy as much. It's a different type of receiver. But I'll be excited to see those guys together this year. I think they're very different skills at wide receiver, and that means they can win in different areas and cover different niches. So that'll be great. We got BNS coming in here for a question for Scott, saying, what do you think about Falele being the answer at right tackle next year for the Broncos? He's a top 2 tackle, and he's talking about Daniel Falele, the 6'8", 420-pound dude from Minnesota, I believe. All I know is that Chauncey Golston and AJ Epinesa took his lunch money when they played Minnesota. He was too tall, just a little too tall.
Yeah, I don't have a comment for that. I'm gonna have to plead ignorance on him. I don't know enough about him, frankly. Apologies.
Okay, well, he's fun. He's been at Minnesota for a while. A lot of people thought he would come out this year. Didn't end up coming out, but he's good. He's not my favorite tackle in the class. The best one I've seen so far is.
I haven't started working. When you say, you're talking Gophers, not Vikings. I haven't started working on next year's draft class yet. So
yes.
I can't answer with any kind of knowledge on those guys yet.
Yeah, and Aaron Lynch saying, show some love for the boys. Hit that like button. We're at 28.9 right now, but let's get to that cool and smooth 30 for Terrell Davis, of course. And just bringing it back, I'm kind of – a lot of these guys, I watch football games holistically at first, then I'll kind of dial in to specific prospects to watch. And when I watch the games holistically, guys flash. And I'm like, okay, who's that? He's a sophomore. He's a freshman. Writing that name down. Yeah. Evan Neal at Alabama, right tackle this year. Might have been the best player on that offensive line for them. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he's a top 10 player. Just so powerful. You talk about Scott. You actually have had a comment early on our Broncos for Breakfast days where you said there's 400 guys that are 6'2", 6'3", 300 pounds. There are only so many body types that can actually play the tackle position. Evan Neal has that body type, and he's not too big either, right? Like Falele is good. And I just think he plays his pads are a little tall, so that negates some of the mass that he has, right? It's just physics. But you don't see that with Evan Neal. While he's still a big boy, you don't see him getting over his pads, losing balance, and guys getting under him as much. So he sticks out to me. And we have Mo Ron coming in here saying top tackles prospects, Evan Neal and Rasheed Walker from Penn State. That's another one. I think there's a tackle from Miami, Nelson, I think also that has some hype pretty early on, that when I watch Brevin Jordan, like, oh man, that tackle, he is moving great. I'm excited about that. So knows your tackle next year for the Broncos, guys. I'm already saying I'm going to be hyping it. If it's not quarterback, going to be offensive tackle and edge rusher, because those are first round moneymaker positions. Yeah,
and that's why I was so high on Penei Sewell early when we talked about. I thought he should have been the first non-quarterback taken in this draft. Was a big fan of his as well. And again, the game's about the quarterback position. Either the quarterback, or protecting him, or sacking him. There's your money positions right now. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's another one, either Ole Miss or Mississippi State, another tackle. So we'll get into it, guys. We got and Zion Nelson here coming from Mo Ron, saying that Zion Nelson was the guy. So love the name.
There you go, Mo. Yeah, Mo Ron. But yeah, any thoughts so far about this Broncos? We can get back to it here. The Peyton Manning, Drew Lock stuff. How much right now? Let's say out of 10. Let's spin it on you. Out of 10, how important is it that Peyton Manning and Drew Lock are spending time together, working together 2 nights, 9 hours total, going over tape, going through stuff? How much does that matter? From 0, doesn't mean a hoot, to 10, wow, Drew Lock's now going to become a Hall of Fame quarterback?
I'd say it's a 5. It's average. It's another weapon in the it's another arrow in the quiver. It's something else that you can add on to all the things that he needs to do to take that step forward. And again, as Peyton said, he goes, ever since I retired, I'm available to all Broncos quarterbacks as a resource. So he'll be working with Teddy Bridgewater too. And how can that be a bad thing? I
Yeah.
told y'all earlier, I like crossing over my different sports analogies. It's like having a Hall of Fame pitcher next to you. How do you approach this? How do you work this guy? How do you hold the seat? How do you do these things? Having that as a resource can only be helpful. But at the end of the day, these guys still have to go out there and make the plays, and Peyton can't do it for them. And if he could do that, then it'd be a 10, but he can't. So, obviously. So I think it helps. I don't think it's going to be necessarily the difference, but every little bit helps for sure.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. I think of it, not to get too nerdy here, we'll go to a school analogy here. Peyton Manning is, you have 2 night-long tutoring sessions with a Rhodes Scholar in physics before your big physics exam coming up, or your final exam. And it's great that you have that guy. It doesn't hurt at all, but how good of a student is that person? How much have they worked beforehand? What is their just natural aptitude to absorb things? And how are they under pressure, right? Like, are they somebody who can take what they learned and apply it willy-nilly? Or is it when the bullets are flying live, they go blank? Their mind just goes, they go into a trance and like, okay, I'm going to revert back to what I've been doing this whole time. So there are a lot of factors to it. It doesn't mean that working with that guy is bad, but is it actually going to make an impact? Or how much of an impact? We won't know until we know. So that's is what it is. And we have a super here coming from Mr. Boggins, who asked me to join him for an adult beverage at some point. Hands are off the wheel, John. I love John.
Sorry. We need one of those flashing warnings on here. If you have epilepsy, you might want to look away.
Yeah, and Mr. Boggins coming in here. Having Peyton worked well for Trevor Siemian and Brock Osweiler. See, I do think it's a little bit different for Trevor Siemian and Brock Osweiler, because Peyton Manning was trying to prepare as a starter for most of those times, right? So it's different than coming back and being the mentor, the tutor, the teacher, versus Peyton trying to be a competitive student himself then and trying to learn and put himself in a best situation. But it's not like Space Jam here, where Peyton Manning touches a football, puts his power in the football, and gives it to Drew Lock. If only it were that easy. But we'll see.
Yeah, I appreciate the super there, and I agree with you. It's not the difference maker, but it doesn't hurt. It's not going to be oh yeah, well, he's talking with Peyton Manning now, everything's solved. No, no, everything else. There's a lot of other things that still have to go work. But I think of it almost like a finishing school. If you make one read better, if you know one coverage better, every little bit helps. There's so much that goes into this. It's why to me it's the greatest team game in the world. There's so much strategy that goes into this, especially at the quarterback position, where it's not necessarily nearly as much physical ability. The league's a bigger, faster, stronger league, but the intangibles, that if you can pick up on those things from a Hall of Fame quarterback who's willing to teach you without ego, with just trying to help, because that's where he is in his life. Great. Why wouldn't you listen to Peyton Manning? It can only help.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Peyton Manning, I don't know if you guys have seen the Peyton Manning SNL, but that's probably one of my favorites of the last 10, 15 years. And I would love a skit of like Peyton Manning teaching. It doesn't have to be Drew Lock, but somebody playing Drew Lock. And in that article, they said Peyton Manning was going over some of Peyton Manning's old tape. So just Peyton sitting back, like just throwing his highlights, like, oh yeah, I think it was a cover one. I don't know. I just threw a laser in there. It was great. Like it was a stogie and a bourbon or something. Just having a good time.
Then I hit 40 years old and had to pay attention to where I was throwing.
Yeah. Yep.
One of my favorite Peyton stories was when he was at Tennessee. There was a quarterback there named Todd Helton, who was probably very familiar with lots of Denver Broncos fans. And he was a quarterback at Tennessee. And they asked him, they said, when did you decide to go full-time baseball? And he says, the first time I saw Peyton Manning show up at practice. And I thought that was a pretty good quote from a guy that ended up being one of the best of the game in Todd Helton. Oh
man. Did Randy Johnson play football too?
I don't know if he did or not. Todd actually played a decent bit in his first with Tennessee, and this was when Tennessee was Tennessee, not a mid-level SEC program. To be fair, this is when Tennessee was 10-2, 11-1 Tennessee.
Yeah, man, back in the glory days of Knoxville. I'm not a big SEC guy myself. I know you're down there in SEC country, following the Dogs, alma mater of Auburn as well, but. Anytime the SEC, one of those teams can kind of fall off a little bit, I'm okay with that. It doesn't hurt my feelings that much. Although I will say they have a lot of good football players.
When Tennessee was Tennessee, LSU was 5-6. So it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Someone else is taking the reins there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, we're at an hour now, so unless any super chats come in on the buzzer, I think that's going to do that for building a Broncos breakfast for breakfast. So thank you, Scott, so much for joining us today. Again, Carl will be back hopefully next Tuesday, but he was answering an emergency response. His hometown and the community next to it was hit by a tornado, and Carl, being the community servant that he is, said, guys, I love you. Building the Broncos is important, but I got other places I got to be. So shout out to Carl and everyone at Carl on Twitter, at Carl Dummer MHH. Give him a shout out and wish him well, because I know he's got a lot going on right now. But follow us. This is Building the Broncos. Follow us on Twitter at BTB Football Pod. You can follow Scott and myself, Scott at Scout Kennedy, and you can follow myself at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, guys, follow our Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. Follow us at Mile High Huddle. If you are joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe, like, and share. If you're joining us on Facebook, click those thumbs up. That can greatly appreciate it. I'm also going to drop in the chat again Scott's confirmation right here. You guys can follow that. There you go. YouTube.com/C/Scott Kennedy, where he covers things not just Denver Broncos related, but all things NFL. He's not a biased fan here. He's going to tell you it as it is, and time will tell if he's right or wrong. But let him prove himself first. Either way. But Scott, what do you got the rest of the night? I know it's late there. I got to go cook some dinner.
No, I figure we're getting to about the time where the Braves are ready to blow a lead and choke away their bullpen. So I'll get up and probably watch them do that and then go to bed.
Oh man, it's you got to come out. Have you been to a game out at the Mariners Stadium?
I have not. I have not. I want to go there, and I want to see the Seahawks. I want to see the Huskies, and I want to see the Sounders. I want to see all of those. And as many times I've been in there, just been to Seattle, working for a company that was founded in Seattle. I've been to Seattle a dozen times and haven't been to some of those great venues for some reason.
Man, beautiful, beautiful stadium. We're just walking the concourse across the Sound. You got the Olympics, Cascades off to the east. Rainier to the south. Doesn't get better than that. A little baseball and way too expensive beer makes for a good afternoon. But guys, subscribe, like, and share.
I don't drink, so I'm a cheap date.
Well, that makes two for me. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys. Have a great one. Stay safe. We'll see you all. Scott and I will see you again on Thursday morning at 8:00 Mountain Time for Broncos for Breakfast. Carl will be back next week, next Tuesday. And the episode is at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So appreciate you guys. Stay safe. Love y'all. Go Broncos.